if I stabbed you, would that be okay?
I
Is that
so
okay? Yes or no? Or you would
let
you or do you or would you like to try it?
I would say to you, I don't want that
Right,
to happen to me.
right. So would you want it to happen to someone else?
Absolutely not.
Exactly.
But I have to. Can I prevent it? No, I can't prevent it.
Um, but that's your point of view.
I can't prevent it because I don't. In order to be able to know it's a potential thing to happen to someone else, it means more to me. I don't want it to happen to anybody.
What if I do? Okay, I tell you what. We'll just stop people from selling knives.
That's idiotic because
But
knives
what?
have.
That's the same. That's the same reason and logic behind the selling of guns.
It's absolutely not. Here, let me give you an example. Everything has a positive. A lot of things created have positive and negative uh, potential. What I mean by that is, right, I can buy myself a broomstick. That broomstick can be attached to a broom, or that broomstick can be used to bash somebody's child in the face, right? A brick can be the foundation of a building, or it can smash somebody's head,
Just like a
right?
gun.
What positive thing, what does a gun build?
Self-defense.
What does a gun build?
Don't
It
build
doesn't
nothing.
build a damn thing.
No.
Exactly. It is used. The weapon is
Right.
used to
Just
what?
like any other weapon.
It is used, but its sole purpose.
So it's
I'm
intent.
not against. I'm not against
So it's
guns.
intent.
I'm not. But there is no. It doesn't build anything. You can't hold on to a gun and say, you know what? I think I'm gonna make something out of this gun.
You can
I'm
build
gonna
a
make a.
fortune off of selling them.
That's a fortune. That's
You can build
something
a
else.
great
That's the
collection.
money. You
You can build a
cannot
great
take that.
collection.
That's just for views. Again, you cannot take a stack of guns and come up with something that's like, okay, this is look what we did here. This is great. It's not going to be
Yeah,
stable. You have to do
yeah.
something else to it in order to
I'm
make
not
it
going to go there.
constructive. A knife, right? A knife can cut wood. It can do things. It can create things.
Or it can stab people.
But I'm saying let's stock on the positive, right? A knife can help um, open something that needs
Lots
to
of
be
things.
opened, right? But what can a gun do?
A
I'm not
gun does a
again.
lot.
I'm not against, but you cannot sit up here and say, you know what? I think I'm gonna use this gun to open this bag of chips.
You
I mean,
can,
you can, but
but it don't
it's
make
going
sense.
but it's going to destroy something else because it's not going to stop at that bag.
Right. So when some people think of what is a reasonable debate about something, you have to ask yourself, to what end?
And for me, again, when I talked about the weapons, I'm saying we are not acknowledging the supply chain that is feeding criminals.
But what about
Yep.
the sub? I understand all of that,
Okay.
all of that. But what I don't understand is other people who lead you down this rabbit hole thinking that they can somehow remedy this in human beings.
No, you can't. You can't remedy that. That complicates it.
Especially when it's intentional.
And the thing about it is, just because you can't do everything, don't mean you don't do a damn
Involved.
thing.
You can't
Right?
look to the federal government to break law just because
Nah,
someone shoots up a school.
nah. I'm
Violation.
not saying that.
Right. But you have to acknowledge the fact, like some people, yes,
But
you
we
can
are not.
change laws, things
Again,
like that. But even when they did that, for instance, the Brady Bill showed a huge difference in those types of crimes being created. Once the Brady Bill expired, there was a rise in incidents. Now, some people would automatically say there is a relationship between the two, especially those pushing a particular narrative,
but really,
because there is maybe a portion of that variable that is causal, maybe a portion. But what they find out is the law didn't always cover things. Well, what if a pawn shop? You bought it from a pawn shop, a gun show,
Yep.
or a family member just gives it to you.
Perfectly legal.
So are you going to address all of it, or just
No,
pick and
you
choose
don't
the
have
things that
to.
we are
Just because you
particular
just
about?
because you can't do something, don't everything don't mean you do nothing.
Right. And no
I'm not
one
talking
never
about I'm
said,
not talking about the pawn shops. I'm not talking about all that stuff. I'm talking
right,
about the laws are written in a way to allow for people and no records to be kept of a sale in, let's say, Texas. When it leaves Texas, there is
but the
no
law is
visibility.
not written for that.
No, the law was
That is a
written.
loophole that is present despite
No,
the law.
Leonard, I'm telling you, 926A was written into it. It wasn't there before. It
Right.
wasn't
And
there
it
before.
still does not cover
No,
everything.
no, no. Stop and listen what I'm saying. It was written in to the law. It wasn't there. The Gun Control Act of 1968 didn't allow for some things. This act in 1986 opened it up so it could be done. And the weapons could be supplied outside of where they were first bought and shipped legally, as long as nobody knows where it's going and nobody can keep records of it. There's no requirements of once it's sold that first time, right? There is no where it's shipped out. And the US government is by 926 and in that Firearm Owner Protection Act, it carves it out to allow for it to supply to both. It wasn't there before. The NRA sponsored that.
Great.
So all I'm saying is we need to know what the law did. We don't, I ain't that when they describe, oh, it's just a loophole. No, this is a purposeful loophole driven into it. And what they did is to throw everybody off. They had all these other sort of provisions about machine guns and all these other things about gun safety, but peppered in the background was this little thing that carved it out. So it basically it wasn't a loophole. It was a loophole that was created by legislation because bipartisanship, because there was a lot of Democrats that voted for it. All right. But they was trying to get something, at least they got some things, but this little provision was peppered into the vote. And if nobody caught it, what do? You don't do no gun control because there wasn't a such a pipeline for illegal rifle. I'm sorry, it wasn't such a pipeline for rifles and pistols to make it into other areas until that law allowed for it. There was more, and they wrote into law at this point now, US government and state government and police, y'all can't even hold a database with anything with weapons and registered owners. It's written into the law. So now that when the crime happens, everybody's saying, oh, what about crime? You feeding the crime by making it illegal to get it in there. So I'm saying crime is going to be crime. It is going to be. I'm not saying anti-guns is the answer. I'm not. But I'm saying acknowledge the damn thing that's there. Acknowledge it. Ain't nobody acknowledging that. And that's what concerned me when I looked it up. Because all I was doing was Googling, bruh. All I was Googling is saying, hey, I want to know more about weapons supply chain, how things occur. Why is there so many weapons? There are people that get paid to do this type of stuff. I'm just doing it because I had spare time. And to find that I saw that law, that into the Constitution, I ain't gonna lie, I probably had to read it for like 6 or 7 days to go back to it because I was like, I must be reading this wrong. Clearly, somebody is smarter than me, sees what I just read, bruh. Because everybody else is busy putting out talking points to oppose each other. You're either pro guns or you're anti guns. And the whole thing, where what my man say, what they say recently, the only answer for a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. But when you're supplying both sides, that's good rhetoric to earn money because they put the loophole in there. That was my surprise to it. I'm not, like I said, I'm not for like all of a sudden, like taking up all guns and then all crime will go away. That's not what I'm saying. There's always going to be weapons. Once they're
Like I
out there,
said,
you can't hold them
your
back.
opinion is that this is what caused the change.
No, I'm not saying cause, effect, and answer. I'm saying acknowledge what happened. And there is an easy way to just address a
And then
law.
what?
Every there's no I don't have to have a destination, bruh.
Why not?
I don't because I don't.
What's the
If
point?
the point is making people aware so that more people
Now that we
understand things.
know, now that the people that know this know it, now what?
Time that we go to work. It's a
To
clunk.
do
It's a
why?
what?
What work?
Whatever they feel compelled to do.
That could be anything.
Yes, it can.
Please explain to me.
Does it make you want to talk to someone and say, hey, my friend just told me about this law. Do
No,
you know anything about this? So you
no,
ain't shit.
no,
You ain't willing to do nothing.
no. It just doesn't have anything to do with what I deal with on a regular.
No. See, let me call it out, right? When we talk about things where people can have an effect, you either want to be a part of effectuating change or you
So
want to
what?
sit on the
I never
sidelines.
heard what you're
So
going to change.
so don't sit up here tell me about wicked people and
You haven't
not
told me about
knowing.
what you're going to change.
I don't have to change anything. I
Right.
use talented people around me that when we talk with each other, we feel compelled to talk to other people and see what can be done or if something needs to be done. But to just sit there and say, well, I'm not thinking I'm doing nothing.
Well, I mean, if I'm
That's
going to convince somebody about some information that I
it's not
found
about
out,
convincing. It's not
I have
about
a plan.
convincing. It's not about convincing. It's about discussing. You can't get somewhere without having a discussion
I don't want
first.
to sit around and talk about people about things
I
all the
just
time.
told you something that you may not have known about. So you telling me, okay, well, I
Right.
don't want to sit around and talk with nobody about it because I don't feel
No,
like I have any interest in it.
no. So what would I relate it to?
Doesn't matter. I just
Yes,
gave
it do.
information. I gave
Yes, it do.
information. You can't listen. You cannot sit there and talk about how other people and say like they selectively ignorant, right? If it ain't a part of you that says, you know what? I just learned about this law that the NRA sponsored. Let me find out more about that and see what's going on. And
Maybe I'm not
let me
opposed to it.
that's not a position. If you're opposed or you're not. If you for more
Right.
weapons, if you see an avenue with more weapons going in and killing our brothers sisters in the street, and you ain't feeling no,
Hey, you can't. See, that's the thing I'm talking about.
no. See, listen, let me finish my sentence. I'm not trying to tell you what to think. I'm introducing a thought process that I can't assume what you are or are not for. But if I say something that I see an angle that says, hey, you know what? This is allowing weapons to be able to purchase in a state and be showing up in New York where they're not going to be registered. It's just going to be in the hands of bad people, or in Atlanta and be in the hands of bad people. And we know, and I introduced that to you as being a social justice individual. I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to entertain it, because the same way I'm introducing that to you is the same things I introduce to people who may not be
But
aware of some
here's the
things.
thing: I don't do what I do for entertainment purposes.
I didn't well, I didn't say you did. I didn't
And
say
I
you
think
did.
that's where we kind of sometimes are different.
No. I see you have a tendency to see like left side, right side, or
Is there
something your
another
way.
side?
And I'm yes, there is a way where
What?
when a mindset is about we are all on the same page, right? Meaning that we all have the ability to do good and bad on this earth. If you think I'm doing something bad, then find different, find the opposition to it. But if I'm not doing nothing that's bad, we have no reason to be in opposition of each other.
Well, that's not always true.
Oh no,
It
it
don't
pretty
have to
much
be
is.
bad.
If uh,
Do it.
if I'm not doing anything, but you said
Maybe
there
you
has
could
to
be
be
just doing something I don't
opposition.
like.
We don't have to be in opposition of anything,
But
because if
maybe I don't like
anything,
what you're doing.
maybe you don't.
Don't mean that it's bad.
Don't
Maybe I
affect
just don't
you.
like
Don't
it.
don't affect you. But see, that's interesting. That again, that's introducing that logic into a sphere that we're not talking about. We
But
was
like, I
talking
wouldn't
about,
sit around and talk about a starving man. I would
but
feed
again,
him.
let me explain what I mean when I say that. See, in our America right now, see what we've gotten is we've gotten too smart for ourselves. We talk about one thing, but then we throw in another logical thing that's not related. I'm just strictly talking about staying on track with what I introduced about 926 alpha, and I said that this whole provision makes law enforcement and the government blind. And matter of fact, when that was introduced back in 1986, law enforcement was totally against it. They were totally against not having any sort of guidelines to keep track of weapons. And matter of fact, they can't even have, like, when it comes in on an invoice and let's say it's shipped in the United States, right? There cannot even be records kept of what weapons were shipped into the United States. It can only exist on the shipping documents and the shipper and the receiver. That's it. I'm not saying that this is the answer. I'm saying that there is a big ass blind spot.
Yeah, I understand people that know that may not know all the details about that, but
Right,
I
but if
do
they,
also know the people that know where to go get a gun in their neighborhood.
that's a supply chain.
Right. But is that really a part of the legal supply chain?
It
Or is it
is
that
because
black,
the
or is
law.
it a black market?
No, it's well, it's the black market
Why
fed
is it
by.
called the black market?
Well, it's not. It can't be proven it's a black market until it's used illegally.
Right. Right. So one, you automatically, I think some people automatically assume certain things about other people. Like, say for instance, I'm not against guns in the community,
And I've said I'm not against them either.
but you mentioned it.
I'm against crime. I'm against
But
supplying
you
them to the
mentioned it.
criminals.
And then you specifically drew a relationship to it, a brother
It's
and sister relationship
you
to it.
understand that that's how it's getting in. That's a part of the way that it's getting in.
But
But
you assume that I am opposed to that, I'm
I
assuming.
didn't assume anything about you.
But you assume that this was all about the crime in the
No, what
community.
I told you is it's a facet of it. And if you don't want to do anything as if you're not feeling any sort of way to address it, to even have a discussion with it about people,
But I mean, what would the discussion be about?
you don't have to have a destination with every
Yes, you
conversation,
do.
because no, you don't.
Well, if you don't, people won't come to your meeting.
I'm talking about I'm not, you don't went to a meeting. I'm talking about you can have a discussion with someone who's involved with law enforcement. That's not, it's not saying you got to have a destination. But see, what a lot of people don't understand is we all have spheres of influence. We don't know what may come of something if we just have discussion. It may feed into something else that we all become wiser, more knowledgeable, more informed. All we have to do is talk.